The comma may be small, but it is a mighty mark. Welcome to Jenn's Writing World. If you have a story to tell, you are in the right place. Let's do it 10 minutes at a time. Let's start with one of my favorite riddles. What is the difference between a cat and a comma? One has claws at the end of its paws, and one is a pause at the end of a clause. Isn't that so cute? I have 3 cats, as you know, so there's lots of claws in my house at the end of paws. But this riddle is also a great way to remember one use of commas, and that is that they are at the end of clauses, as in if you have a dependent clause, an intro clause at the beginning of your sentence, you put a comma at the end of it, a pause at the end of a clause. I know, by now you are rolling your eyes and going, Jenn, seriously, grammar? It's Sunday, I just woke up, I do not feel like getting a grammar lesson. Okay, I don't blame you, especially commas, because oh my goodness, I don't think any other form of punctuation has more rules than the comma. Well, I'm not going to cover the dozens of rules that have to do with commas. Matter of fact, there are entire classes dealing with that, and I do encourage you to take some of them. Because one of the things that drives me crazy when I used to be in critique groups was people who knew how to use commas that would just cover my sheet with all the commas that I missed. It used to drive me crazy. And finally somebody said, well, then why don't you learn how to use commas? And she had a point. Just because I was frustrated that other people were correcting my commas does not mean that I was supposed to put my foot down like a petulant child and say, I refuse to learn commas. It makes a lot more sense to learn to use commas. And then when people critique your work, they will critique important things like the theme, the ideas, plot holes, and not your commas. On the other hand, you, when you critique, can be the person to correct other people's commas, and then you can be the frustrated one. Why don't they just learn to use commas? I'm not asking you to be smug about it, but the more people that learn how to use commas properly, the easier editing and critiquing becomes. Today, I just want to cover 4 ways to properly use a comma. Hopefully these are rather simple to remember, and so you'll be able to use them immediately the next time you write or we have a write-in together. And as I said, you can ignore this video and move on to other things for your day. But the reason there are comma rules is not to be pedantic and not to drive authors and editors crazy. It is for understanding and clarity. And I hope that is what all authors want to achieve with their writing, understanding and clarity. So let's learn 4 rules today, easy to remember. You can always go back and watch it again, and maybe that will increase our understanding and clarity. Here's number 1. Use a comma when connecting 2 complete sentences with a conjunction. Don't do a comma splice. You may have heard of a comma splice and wondered, what the heck is that? Well, very easily, it is when you have a complete sentence and another complete sentence, and the only thing between them is a comma. You have spliced something, I guess. I don't know why they call it that, actually, but that is a comma splice. And here is an example. John ran every morning. He hoped to get faster. There's a comma between those 2 sentences. That's a comma splice. What should go between those 2 sentences? Well, there could be a variety of things. We've talked about the semicolon, and that would be a great place for one, since those 2 sentences are relatable. However, you could also put a period. So you could have 1 sentence and a period, and another sentence and a period. However, if you really want to connect the 2 sentences, and you want to use a comma, all you have to do is add a conjunction, and then you don't have a comma splice. And this is what it would look like. John ran every morning, and he hoped to get faster. Notice the and the comma. Now you are correct. Oh, by the way, you wouldn't want to do the and without a comma. And again, that's just kind of done for clarity and understanding. So, 2 complete sentences, you connect them with a comma and a conjunction. Simple. Oh boy, my next comma rule is optional. I happen to like it sometimes, and that is you use a comma before the word to. Here's an example. Janie wants to run faster too. Notice the comma. Now, you can also write, Janie wants to run faster too. It's not wrong, but I'm going to explain a little bit why the comma might be better for understanding and clarity. Janie wants to run faster is a complete sentence. The to is sort of an add-on. It's kind of a dependent clause all by itself. It changes the meaning of the sentence when you add it, and so therefore by adding the comma, you're kind of sectioning it off. You're saying this is a complete idea and we're adding to it, and thus use a comma. As I said though, it can be optional, so you should do whatever your style guide tells you to do. This next one can be a little bit tricky. Use a comma to separate direct names. We use names all the time in our stories, but sometimes they are direct and sometimes they are people we are talking about. Talking about people is different than talking to people. That's the direct part. If you are talking to someone, it gets a comma, and it looks like this. Mom, I need to go to the library right now. You are talking to your mother. It is direct. There is a comma after mom. Now, maybe if you're talking to somebody else about what you told your mother, this is what it would look like. I told my mom I needed to go to the library right now. Notice two things. One, there's no comma after mom. It is not a direct name. And two, the mom isn't capitalized. Yes, she is your mom, but you are not talking to her. Therefore, it doesn't get the capitalization, nor does it get a comma. If the direct name is in the middle of the sentence, it gets two commas, one before and one after, and that looks like this. Please, Mom, help me check out a book. Or, help me check out a book, Mom. So notice in the first one, comma before and after mom because it's in the middle, and at the end, comma before the mom, period after. So no matter where mom is, it's going to be sectioned off. In the middle by two commas, at the end by a comma and other punctuation, at the beginning just with the comma because it starts the sentence. Simple. You just got to know the difference between direct nouns and indirect nouns. So direct nouns get commas, indirect nouns do not. Oh boy, I get to do the rant that I didn't do the other week when I told you I wouldn't, and that is about the Oxford comma. Okay, first of all, do whatever your style manual, your office, whatever you are told to do, that is what you should do. But if you are writing books, if you are writing for yourself, if you are writing letters, if you are writing grocery lists, would you please use an Oxford comma? Seriously, this is not hard. It doesn't take any effort. Matter of fact, it takes more effort to not put the comma in because you're going thing, comma, no comma. That takes more effort. Yes, this is a rant. I love the Oxford comma. No other form of punctuation makes things more clear than an Oxford comma. Now you're like, Jennifer, what the heck is an Oxford comma? I hear about it all the time, but I don't know what it is. You've been throwing around commas all day long. If you are making a list, an object, a comma, an object, a comma, that last object before the end, the one that probably has an and something else, put a comma before the and. Funny, we did that above too. And you might be like, Jennifer, the and, it stands for the comma. No, it doesn't necessarily stand for the comma. And let me give you a couple of examples. The flag is red, white, and blue. Notice the comma after white. It is an Oxford comma, also called a series comma, because people besides Oxford Dictionary use it nowadays. Makes it very clear. Does the and also separate the white and the blue? Yes, it does. However, leaving out an Oxford comma can cost real money. A dairy company in Maine had to pay its drivers $5 million in overtime costs. Why? Because the contract was missing an Oxford comma. This is what the contract said. The canning, processing, preserving, freezing, drying, marketing, storing, packing for shipment or distribution of 1. Agricultural produce, 2. Meat and fish products, and 3. Perishable foods. Okay, that's a lot of commas in there. But you know where there's not a comma? There is not a comma between packing for shipment or distribution of. Because there was no comma between the shipping and the or, it meant that they were unclear whether this sentence meant the packing for shipping or the packing for distribution or the packing for shipping or distribution. And apparently, the lacking a comma cost $5 million in the lawsuit. Now you can say, wow, that's just crazy lawyer talk. You wouldn't necessarily be wrong, but wouldn't it have just been easier if they'd used the Oxford comma and not questioned it? I think it would have been. So, save yourself some grief. Save yourself $5 million. Just use the Oxford comma every time. If your guide says don't use it anyway. This is the one time where I'm like, no, use it. That's my rant. It makes no sense not to use it. It's clear if you use it. It might be clear if you don't use it, but you're not going to know that until you get in trouble over it. So, Oxford commas, series commas, serial commas, whatever you want to call them, just put the little guys in. End of rant. Okay, that's it. 4 ways to use a comma. Are there more? Oh, yes. Dozens of rules on how to use a comma. I put some websites down below if you want to learn more. There are great free online classes on using commas, and I know you might think this sounds horrible and you hate grammar, but here's the interesting thing. The more you use them, the more you learn about them, the better your writing becomes, and the more you will learn to like them. I actually love it when I use a comma correctly and then I'm in Grammarly and it doesn't tell me I'm doing something wrong for once in the grammar department. Fantastic. It's a really good feeling. So go ahead and feel that way. Learn your grammar, learn how to use commas. I promise you, it will only make you a better writer. And isn't that what we all want to be? I hope you will join me Tuesday for another write-in and we can practice using those commas. We won't discuss the one I just ranted about all that time. If you would like to get more videos like this one, where I rant and rave about grammar and the craft of writing, you can hit subscribe down below. A like is always appreciated, and I would love it if you would share the video with your writing friends, so we can all become better writers. Today's quote is by Stephen Coonts, and he is an American novelist of best-selling spy thrillers, and this is what he said. What the average reader doesn't understand is the sweat, blood, and tears that goes into writing novels. And some of those tears are shaped like commas. So long from Jenn's writing world. Until we meet again, write, write, write.